Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Mindful Minutes. Today we are going to talk about healing. And I don't mean just spiritual healing, just emotional healing, just physical healing, but the healing process in general. Are you somebody who's been through traumatic circumstances, believes you've gone through your healing process, but feels like things kind of tend to trigger you often, come to the surface and overflow? That means you are not done healing. Are you somebody who's experienced physical trauma, emotional trauma, or just scary circumstances in your life and has avoided dealing with it? Do you kind of push it down and just say, oh, it's taken care of. I've been through it, made it through, I survived, I healed. You have not healed if you believe you have, but you haven't gone through the process. If either of those describe you, or perhaps you fall somewhere in between, or just curious on the process of healing and how to trust the process, you're definitely in the right place at the right time right now. Thank you for joining me on tonight's episode of the Mindful Minutes. We are talking healing. Let's get started. There's a quote by Beth Moore who once said, "I am better off healed than I ever was unbroken." Now, when I first read that quote many years ago, I had to think about it. What does that even mean? How does it even make sense? I'm better off healed than I ever was unbroken. Well, if we are unbroken, we haven't been broken, right? So how do we know how to heal through traumatic circumstances or just difficult life situations? If you haven't experienced it, you haven't healed through a situation, so you're not sure what that even means. That's where it took me time to really process the depth behind that quote. For me, my healing process has come in different times of my life. I've been through abusive situations, I've been through intimidating situations, I've been through relationship situations, job situations, physical situations, all sorts of things that have required me to take a step back and deal with the aftermath of whatever that circumstance was. Even the smallest circumstances that leave us traumatized in the littlest ways really do impact our lives, and we have to heal from all of those circumstances. So healing is not just specific to a physical injury or a huge traumatic event. Healing can be in the littlest ways all the time. I previously filmed a YouTube video for my channel on grief. And if you have not yet watched the video about mindful healing through the grief process, I absolutely encourage you, if you've ever lost a loved one or know somebody who has, to watch that video. It's extremely raw, it's very transparent, and I talk about my experience with the grieving process, as well as just kind of elaborating on the grieving process. Within the first 6 months of this year, I lost my mother, my grandmother, who was my mother's mother. So from one side of the family, we lost two of the most important women that were foundation of our family. And I also have had to deal with a cancer crisis in my life. The good news is I'm going to heal physically and emotionally from all of these things, but it's taken me time to realize how I need to nurture myself through this healing process, because when it's one after another, it's easy to feel like we can't breathe. And that's kind of been something that I've been saying a lot to myself lately, is when am I going to be able to come up for air? How am I going to be able to really go through the healing process through my grief? How am I going to be able to focus on the physical healing that my body needs right now? How am I going to wrap my head around everything that I need to pull myself back together through these really, really difficult times? It's been a challenge, but that's exactly the reason why I wanted to create today's video, because as I've shared my personal experiences, I've in turn received a ton of feedback from viewers, from friends, from other people who have reached out and said, you know what, I'm going through the same thing, or I've been through the same thing. How do you do it? Let's talk about it. So that is why I decided to talk about healing, because a lot of us need to talk about it. A lot of us need more healing in our lives, and what better time to start than now, when we need it the most? So how do we know that we're on the right path to healing? How do we know that we're actually taking the right steps for it to truly make a positive impact in our lives for our future? There are 3 critical steps that every single one of us needs to take in order to initiate, engage, and follow through with the healing process in a way that it actually heals us to the core of the trauma of our hurt. Starting with number 1, acknowledging your need to heal. It seems pretty obvious by saying it. If I've had a debilitating injury, or if I've had a traumatic emotional experience, or maybe a really rough situation at work that's kind of left me unsettled to the core, that is something that I need to identify needs healing in my life. So for me personally, as I have been going through this really just kind of trying emotional and physical time, there are little things that surface in ways that remind me that I still need to heal. So I'm someone who tends to keep myself too busy. I occupy myself a lot with things in my career, with hobbies, activities, things that I like to do with my extra time. And not very often do I just sit down and reflect only on my internal needs as far as physical healing and emotional healing. And when I get too wrapped up in everything else that I'm involved in, I've learned that things can easily trigger me, and the emotions and thoughts and the process that needs to happen for me to heal tends to kind of bubble out and flow over. My emotions become unexpected and show up in times when I'd rather them not. And when I find myself faced with those situations, I realize at that time I need to give myself more time. That's when it's the most important. In the beginning, when you realize you need to give yourself more time to heal, or you need to allow yourself to begin that healing process. So step 1 is an extremely important step. Acknowledge what's within you that needs to heal. Acknowledge that it's there, know what it is, and that's when you can really start the actual process of healing. Step number 2 for the healing process. So once you've identified the areas in your life that need that healing to really happen for you, the next step is to know what your triggers are. So what is a trigger? Really quickly, a trigger is anything that brings you right back to that place of devastation for you. So for some, it may be a car accident. Maybe you have a physical injury that manifests emotionally. Perhaps it was a devastating injury or a devastating accident, and certain things when you're out and about, riding in a car with, driving or with others, triggers you back to that moment of your initial traumatic experience or traumatic injury. Anything that affects you to your core and really brings you tangibly in the present back to that moment, if that makes sense, is a trigger. So what are your triggers? How do you identify your triggers? That's a very important process in figuring out the right healing path for yourself, because in order to truly heal in the core of your soul, you have to know what's triggering you to go back to the place that traumatized you to begin with. For me, certain songs are triggers. Maybe a picture is a trigger. Sometimes commercials even can be triggers if it's something that connected me intimately or personally to one of my loved ones that I lost. So an example, the other day I was out to eat with my fiance, and a song came on the overhead of the restaurant where we were eating that just also so happened to be the song that was played at my mother's funeral. Now, it's been a few months since I lost my mom, and I'd like to think that I'm on the right path to healing and that I've been doing my best to cope through it, to allow myself the grieving time that I need and to feel the emotions through it. But an example of me still needing healing was that as soon as that song came on, I instantly felt teary-eyed, my soul hurt. It brought me all the way back to that moment when I very first lost her and was trying to process life in that time. I wasn't expecting to go out to brunch and have that experience. So that allowed me to better understand different areas that I still need to cope with better, or to better cope with, and different areas that still need healing when it comes to that particular loss, because it's a very sensitive thing, and something as simple as music and a song triggered me back to a place that wasn't happy for me. So step 2, know your triggers and know how to identify them so that when they arise, you're easily able to handle them properly in that moment. Let's review. Step 1, know and acknowledge that there's healing that needs to take place. Step 2, identify your triggers and be able to understand them as they manifest. Step 3, which may quite possibly be the most critical piece of the healing process, because this component of healing allows us to get through it not just now in the present, but it also carries us through in our future as well. Step 3 is know your coping skills. Do you have them? Do they need to be strengthened? And what are they? Coping skills are extremely important in healing through any experience in life. What are examples of some coping skills? I don't know about you, but I tend to try to be most familiar with the coping skills that work the best for me. But everybody's different. Your coping skills may be totally different than my coping skills. A coping skill is really just something that gets you through that moment. So examples: calling a friend and talking through your feelings in a moment of feeling panicked or triggered. Another example of a coping skill: yoga, meditation, sometimes taking a walk, breathing exercises. I know for me, when I tend to feel like I'm drifting out of the present and I'm being triggered back to a traumatic experience or a traumatic memory that's kind of wrapping itself around me, I like to breathe, because focusing on my breaths and taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and as I breathe out, telling myself, in this moment, I'm okay. In this moment, my feelings are okay. I don't have to be afraid of them. I don't have to be ashamed of them. But in this present moment, all is well. And when I tell myself through breathing, it automatically calms me down. It's like a mind-body connection that happens. So as I'm convincing myself by telling myself I'm okay, the breathing exercise is steadying my body as well and kind of creating that peace and calm that I need to get through that triggered moment and really cope. So those are just a couple of examples, but coping skills can be anything: reading a book, drawing if you like to draw, listening to music, taking a bubble bath. Coping is anything that allows you to focus on the present moment, make sure that you're grounded in that moment, and help you get through the difficulty of the memory, feeling, or anxiety, panic, whatever it is that it's being triggered in you. And of course, the best coping skill that all of us can have is patience, understanding, and trust that the healing process is meaningful and really does change us in the ways that we need it to. And remember, as you trust the process, the healing process is not just for emotional wounds. It's for anything. You can use coping skills and the healing process to get through physical injury and all sorts of other situations, conflict, traumatic relationship experiences. Perhaps you got laid off from a job and now you're afraid that you'll feel insecure at another job. So there are all sorts of different situations that require healing and can be traumatic for us. So please don't think that trauma and healing only goes with emotional trauma or things that people have done to us. Healing can happen for any situation that leaves us unsettled deep down to the core. And remember, you deserve to heal. You deserve to live a life free of the trauma and the chains that bind you. So the healing process releases that from you. It releases the weight of that trauma from you, allows you to feel lighter, healthier, healthier in your mind, healthier in your spirit, healthier in your body. Healing is an excellent, excellent, excellent tool and an excellent process to bring you through the difficult, strengthen you in the moment, and prepare you for the future. So let the healing take place because you deserve it. Okay, so let's review. Step number 1 to the healing process. Knowing and acknowledging that there's healing that needs to take place is the biggest step that you can take in the right direction to start healing. Step number 2, what are your triggers? Being able to understand what triggers are and how they affect you, and specifically what triggers you, is going to be so important so that when it arises, you will know how to, step number 3, cope. Coping skills are so important, and being able to identify the coping skills that work best for you in any circumstance when you're feeling triggered is so important to allow you to get through that moment, to remain grounded in that moment, or to bring yourself back into a positive place in that moment and be able to move forward. So since we are on the topic of healing, and not just healing emotionally, but also healing physically, I just want to share with you that I am going to be taking a brief leave of absence from filming my YouTube videos for my channel because I have to take care of some pesky little thing called cancer that I have right here, and it needs to be removed. So I am going to give myself some time to heal, and my body some time to heal, and my mind and spirit a little bit of a break. So what you won't see for the next 2 or 3 weeks are new videos that I'll be releasing, or I won't be releasing, I should say. And I thank you for your patience and understanding through the process, but this is a perfect example of how my body is telling me, Leah, it's time to slow down right now, you need a break, or I need a break. So on that note, if you haven't yet checked out some of the other videos on my channel, I encourage you to do so. I have talked about everything from parenting to fear, compassion, grief, and there's even a fun Q&A session in there as well. So please take these next couple of weeks while I am going through my healing and recovery process to check out the different videos on my site if you have not yet, because there is something I can assure you that you can relate to. Perhaps you know somebody who can relate to any of the various topics that I have previously discussed, and really just become more familiar with what I'm about and why mindfulness is so incredibly important to me. And for my faithful viewers out there, I hope you're enjoying Mindful Mondays. I've been so excited since the launch of Mindful Mondays a couple of weeks ago. It's been a great process, and it really is enlightening to understand how to be mindful regarding certain types of situations and topics throughout the week. So I'm really enjoying my mindfulness cards and sharing them with you. So far we have learned about vacation mind, how to listen to our bodies, and this week's Mindful Monday topic was very fitting: smile. How to smile as a form of therapy for your body and your mind, even when you don't feel like it. So I loved this week's mindfulness card because I've been feeling a lot lately like the smile I put on my face isn't necessarily genuine. However, it doesn't have to be fraudulent either, especially when I tell myself to smile to benefit my peace of mind. So tune into my Instagram here and my Facebook page here so that you can also follow me on Mindful Mondays. Again, thank you so much for your constant encouragement and support, and for allowing me to share my experiences in a way that helps me to be raw and transparent with all of my amazing viewers and followers. I appreciate your support and encouragement more than I really can just ever express. Please tune in to my Instagram at Live Resiliently and my Facebook page at Live Resiliently Coaching as I continue to post about mindfulness, about how we can be more cognizant of the ways that we process our experiences in life and deal with life in general. Don't forget to join me for next week's Mindful Monday. I will still continue to post on my social media, even though I won't be posting any new videos while I recover and heal. So thank you so much for your patience. I look forward to seeing you when I return. Have a great couple of weeks ahead of you, and don't forget to tune in to Instagram and Facebook as we continue this journey and learning mindfulness together and how it truly can change our lives. If you like today's episode, please click that like button. If you have not yet subscribed, subscribe to my channel, The Mindful Minutes, so that we can continue to support each other and really better understand how mindfulness does change things for us on a daily basis. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. I will see you in a few short weeks. Don't forget to follow me. I'll be active on all of the rest of my social media in the meantime. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.